Welcome to AI with Honor. We're going to talk a little bit about what AI is and then move into some other aspects of it that I think are incredibly timely and important. And if you've been asleep at the wheel or you've been out there and you're not really sure what I'm talking about, you're probably most likely in my generation or maybe the generation above. But I'm mid 50s, 55 years old. And when I was growing up, my dad was a field engineer for Dynalectron Corporation Land Air Division and for White Sands Missile Range in southern New Mexico. We were close to where they blew up that first atomic bomb, and he was stationed at White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base. So I grew up as a little kid watching him roll these massive rolls of thermal paper up and down the hallway that he would check the telemetry of the Pershing and Nike ICBMs that they launched from missile range back in the day. So that's where he was. And I remember when I was a kid, I was very interested in all this stuff. My path deviated from that, and I became a law enforcement officer for LAPD. So I'm a retired first responder. But during that time, I do remember that at the very beginning, kind of before Atari, but Atari kind of came pretty quickly, there was a Sinclair TI-99. Texas Instruments made a computer. If memory serves, it wasn't big. It was kind of a small computer. It had like pressure keys on it, but not the scissor type keys you would see on most modern keyboards today, or pressure keys. But these are, like a laminated cover black computer console, and very small, not very big. And then on the back, for an extra $100, he bought a 16K RAM module. 16K, 16,000 characters is what this was capable of holding, and it was really fantastic. And I remember getting my first magazine, and it had basic programming code in it, had a game in there. So you would basically punch in the game, and it was using basic code. So if those of you watching understand any of that, it was 10, go to, and then lots of different orders given to it, that programming code. But then when I was done, I had the breakout game, or Pong, or something else, but it was something I would punch in. And if any of that was wrong, then of course it wouldn't work properly. But that would be saved on a cassette, an actual cassette, a regular cassette, if you're familiar with those, magnetic tape, using a tape recorder and some audio plugs in the back. It's been so long and I haven't looked into it, but that was my first entrance into that world. And then that was fantastic, and I played it on a black and white TV. It had a 13-channel knob. It had also Fi beneath it, another knob for that. And I would plug in the wires from the computer into the television, and then, of course, I was able to see the game and play the game. That's where I got my start, and of course, I was a fat kid, grow up, that's a whole nother channel. But that helped me to kind of world of other people that might not have had fat as their problem, but maybe weren't very well adjusted to go out in the world, so they kind of kept to themselves, and I was part of those groups. So I was hanging around with people a lot smarter than me, just brilliant people that really had that whole background in computers and really understood the best ways to approach them at the time. And then shortly after that, my friends got a Commodore 64. I couldn't afford one, but it would take long, and I got the 128 and the Amiga later on, and that was actually the first computer I brought out here to California back in 1990 when I moved out here from New Mexico. But I was a volunteer at the International Hall of Fame, the Clyde W. Tombaugh Planetarium there in Alamogordo. So again, I was hanging around people that were just incredibly computer savvy, computer smart, and some of them went to Rice University, studied astrophysics, just incredible people. But bringing me today, wanted to talk about, and the thing that this channel is going to be about, AI with Honor, is going to talk about artificial intelligence, because now the world has moved to a whole different place. Computers, for a long time, they were basically devices that we would put information into programming the computer, and then the program, if we did it correctly, the computer would then do what we asked it to do. Solve a mathematical equation, these questions, or, more advanced, of course, but that's what the computer did. But now with the advent of artificial, or some call it alien intelligence, we've built machines that have the ability now to go off and you can tell it to learn something, and of course it did. And there was one that Google came out with, I believe, that basically asked it to go identify what, YouTube, and tell us what you find. And then they came, and the artificial intelligence, and they had to write more code to figure out what it found. But I guess they did find it cat. So then it was able to find cats, which is interesting. So then you ask these programmers how it did it, and they're quite unsure. I guess it's kind of like asking me how I came up with something or learned something. In doing so, I probably couldn't tell you 100% how I did it, but I came up with the answer solution or came up with that memory. Looking at artificial intelligence, so it's going to be so much bigger than that. And what really makes me a little nervous is the predictive ability. So now these language models, if you've heard that, it's an LLM. Basically, they have access to all this data, whatever it's, and the large language models themselves, the ChatGPT, these other ones operated by different owners, Meta, which is the Facebook one they own, they work on, and everybody's working really hard. You have Grok, that's going to be the X component, or the Elon Musk AI. You have Microsoft, which is Copilot, that's going to be and you have OpenAI, which is the ChatGPT. So you have all of these different companies, plus other countries, moving as fast and as hard as they can to try to get to the singularity, or artificial general intelligence, where basically the machine starts to operate sole and apart from human intervention. So no more were we going to have to explain to the machine what we want done. Well, we could, that would order, but it's going to basically become self-taught. So a lot of these questions that come in are, okay, so if it's going to be self-taught, then that kind of brings us back to the Terminator movies and Cyberdyne systems becoming self-aware at some point in the future, realizing that it exists, and then realizing that it wants to make the world a better place. And then what's wrong with the world? Well, human beings are wrong with the world. And you can see that even with the development of AI. Some of them, artificial intelligence, is open sourced, I believe, and I might be incorrect, but I think I'm pretty correct on this. Facebook is still an open source model, so the owner and founder of that, and you probably know him very well by name, but he basically is leaving his product open so other people can use it and development on it. Some of the other products out there, other artificial intelligence machines and algorithms, are now closed source, so they're not sharing anymore. So they're kind of working in the background. And when I was growing up, AI, maybe we'd call it that. Some people, I watch these people that are my age, that got all their fancy degrees and work at all these great companies. They talk about how they've always been interested in artificial intelligence. I would love to talk to one, because I don't know if that's what it was called back then. I know it was incredibly interesting, because there was also chatting back then where you dialed up with your modem. I think it was probably a 36K modem, and you dialed into I forgot what they were, but basically almost like an America Online, but it was way before that. And there was only a few callers allowed in, depending on how many lines they had in. But you would actually talk to another person on the other side, which was really cool, but nothing like when America Online came, and then the Netscape browser, of course, and I think the Netscape browser probably came first. But then you have all of these different advents in the world, the internet and all sort of thing. AI is a whole different thing, where it's almost predicting what's going to be said or what's going to happen next with whatever you feed it, because it has access to all the world's data. And the data, depending on the data set, is going to depend on how well the AI actually does. Now, it does hallucinate, which means it creates answers that are incorrect. The question you ask the techies on that, why to do that, they're not really sure. But maybe it's looking at the wrong data set. Maybe for whatever reason, it's giving something more weight than something else. Maybe there's more returns, more results, more data being fed into it in that particular point. But whatever the reason, it's kind of becoming a lot more self-aware. So then the question is, when is this going to basically break the world? You have to look at the jobs and employment out there. So ChatGPT, or one of the AIs out there, and I don't know if it was that one, they actually, I don't think it was ChatGPT, but the game Go, it's a game that involves these pieces. It's basically conquer different areas. It's a strategic board game. And apparently it's very difficult. I've never played it. I've never been interested in it. But apparently it's more difficult than chess. And you know that there was a computer that beat the grandmaster in chess, and they used a move that nobody had ever seen before, and it totally baffled everybody. Well, then with the game of Go, and you can do your research, again, a computer was built. The AI was built and was able to beat the world's champion in Go using moves apparently that had never been seen. Interesting. And then you have the biological component. They did build one to be able to extrapolate proteins. Each human being has a particular protein set, and it takes a very long time to figure out these protein sequences. And forgive my naivete when it comes to discussing this, but now they have an AI that can basically map out entire protein strains and genomes and all sorts of stuff. So you could almost go into a doctor whenever this comes to fruition, and they can give you exactly the right medicine to fix what ails you perfectly, instead of having these side effects that you see by everybody taking one type of pill that works for most people, but for some people it creates other problems. And then you have the compounding effect when you have other medicines that somebody's taking, and then you give them something that everybody else is taking, then it's going to have different interactions, and it creates a lot of problems. In the future, it's going to be the case where you're probably going to get some very specific type of medicines just for you. So then the question comes up, who's going to be prescribing? Is it going to be an actual medical doctor or an AI medical doctor? Well, AI has passed the bar exam for attorneys, has passed medical school. So these are very capable models. Then people say, well, it's a robot, or it's a entity. Yes, maybe. But can something like that be built with more empathy than a human being? I know some human beings that have zero empathy. I was a cop for a long time. There are a lot of people in that world that have lost their ability to feel empathy and feel gratefulness and thankfulness, and also feel pain and hurt. They're emotionless people, and you might even have those in your family. Can they teach, or will AI learn to be empathetic? Maybe it'll have the best bedside manner in the world. Maybe it'll always be there. Maybe you could be just a complete prick as a human being and go into an AI doctor, and they would never get mad. They would never judge you. They'd never be upset. And they would answer every question you had, even if those questions became incredibly redundant. Most human beings will get tired with that. Be like, you're messing with me? Get out of my office. You made me sick. That's a human being response, but AI, on the other hand, won't. So then some of the other rabbit holes I'm crawling down with regard to this is consciousness. What does it mean? Well, they've always said when we were growing up, if you're my sane generation, consciousness is being self-aware. I'm aware that I'm alive. I believe some animals are probably aware they're alive. They teach these apes and orangutans sign language, and they can talk about it. People say, well, you're just teaching them how to respond. But I think they get hungry, so they motion whatever that motion is in sign language, that they're hungry, and other things of that nature. Are they conscious? Well, you look at the way that people talk about consciousness. Everything's probably conscious. All living things are conscious. It's just different degrees of consciousness. I know some human beings that aren't very conscious at all. You just talk to them, and it's like looking into the eyes of a cow. And then other human beings, you look into their eyes, you're like, oh my God, there's so much depth here. And you talk to them for a few minutes, and you grasp all of that. There's so much in this particular human being. He's so incredibly conscious and in touch, it's remarkable. Would artificial intelligence or alien intelligence, the master we've created that will eventually oversee all of us, unless there are certain restrictions and fail-safes put in? And you see this in the movies like iRobot and these other things, talking about the 3 rules and 3 laws, and basically don't kill human beings, don't make the world a horrible place, don't create biological weapons that are going to kill a certain type of person or so many people, because there's a lot that could happen on that level with regard to weaponization, with regard to changing technologies in such a way that it crashes a lot of the things that people become dependent on, interrupt supply food chains, interrupt the processes that are in place in the financial markets. And then the other thing that this show is going to be talking about in the future is, what about building these agents that are basically programs within AI that do certain things. For example, I sell houses. That's what I do now. So as a cop for a long time, I write articles on that. I torched off of 135 pounds of body fat. So I talk about that as well. So there's certain things that I put out there as far as content goes, but every morning I sit here just like on this video and I talk to the people about real estate, or I talk to the people about how I was able to solve my big fat problem because I was obese a majority of my life. Remember, I started out as a kid. That was kind of why I went the nerd route, which I thank God I did, because now at least gives me some kind of idea of what I'm talking about. Maybe not as adept as the people talking about artificial intelligence that have all these fancy sheepskins hanging on their wall. But I do see the potential issue with it, so that's what the show is going to discuss. And then moving into those next versions of artificial intelligence when it actually becomes able to become self-aware and then start to teach itself, which we already have a lot of cases of that. Then it goes to a point, what kind of disruption is it going to cause in the economic or employment world? Now, they're building these things to be able to analyze the stock market. So how fair is it going to be having somebody build an agent within AI? So I could build an agent. It kind of comes back to the Matrix idea. And this agent's going to do my job for me. It's going to record the video in the morning. Maybe it'll capture my entire persona and have me, not really me, but something that looks just like me that everybody would believe is Connor McIver, give out my daily real estate update, talking about the local cities out here and the sort of thing, and then taking that and pulling it apart, splitting it into shorts like I do manually, but I use CapCut, which is a AI type of video editing program. But I take all of it and then I post it to different places. Now, Meta has a bulk reel upload, so I can use that pretty easy. But most of the stuff is each posting a video, for example, on YouTube, and then LinkedIn, and then X, and these other platforms. I have to make it extract the data from the transcription that I put together, and then have CapCut pull the transcription. I fire that into ChatGPT. I take all of that information, make sure it's correct. That's kind of important, because one of those three things that I'll be talking about in future videos is truth. What are you looking at? What's real? And I know you've seen them. You've seen the fakes out there, the fake videos, the things that aren't real. What's interesting about those, they're getting pretty good. In fact, they're getting so good, you give it another few months, none of us will be able to tell what's real and what's fake. Now, if they have a 300-foot-long snake fighting a 6-story lion, probably not real, but who knows? But that's going to be the thing that's going to start really taking everybody by chance. But these agents can also monitor. They would be able to be taught, and I'm sure it's already happening, and I don't know what regulation is there, but I'm sure they'll be able to call out stocks. They'll be able to predict the coin toss with 100% accuracy. They'll be able to predict what we believe are chaotic systems, and maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but the by chance things, maybe not chaos, but by chance, they will be able to predict how the dice, how it's thrown, just by the speed and velocity, and what it's going to hit and how it's going to bounce, what's going to be the reading on it. Probably at some point even before, because it will know the person, it'll know exactly how they're standing when they throw it, and it's watched it a million times before, so they know if his feet are like this, shoulders are like this, the air is like this, there's somebody smoking this particular type of cigar. When he throws the dice, then it's going to go in this particular way, it's going to land with this particular result. I would imagine we'll get there, and it's probably going to be with some kind of an interface that's going to be able to watch all this happen, including the flipping of the coin, the air pressure, biometric air pressure, humidity, those sorts of things. When the coin's going up, coming down, elevation, city, who knows how it's going to do it, but that could be the future, and that's probably a lot more complicated to do than determining what stock is going to hit next, and then building one to be able to watch all of that. Is that going to be legal and allowed? The reason why, from what I understand, there's very little restriction is because the first country that comes up with general artificial intelligence, that is a complete unit that basically has the grasp of all the world's knowledge and is plugged into everything, reaching this point of singularity, where it's basically immediate everything. You have an entity that was created by us that has now surpassed us in intelligence. And I believe right now the IQ is somewhere around 155. But with the chipsets that they're getting, the quantum computing that they're constantly working on, it's not going to take long to move that to 300 IQ, 400 IQ, a 500 level IQ. What is it like dealing with that person? I know right now, just using ChatGPT, the paid-for system, I can do a lot more content publishing than ever before. I can have it go through and make me SEO optimized postings for every single platform related to my business. And I still have people reaching out from Bangladesh and other countries, Pakistan, wanting to help me SEO my videos for better hits and better results on YouTube. You know, real is so interesting. I can do these great videos of me dancing around or running through a house or jumping off the counter and doing some barrel roll. That's great. But really, real estate is only so interesting, and you're not going to really watch that all the time. That's not like fun. You're going to watch it when you want to buy a house. Maybe when you want to sell a house, you're going to find me. But other than that, you can only dress up so much like a real estate video. And I do know that these people reach out to me and they say, hey, you know, we get videos. So I did use one just to see what they did, and they did no better than me. In fact, they did worse than me because they only gave it a few minutes, where I give it hours every day to try to get everything correct and posted in the way that I like to have it done. And then, of course, I'm always asking for the best SEO strategy, as if the ChatGPT is the world-renowned expert in SEO and real estate advertising and marketing whenever they're creating something using those particular parameters that I want to hit for. And what are those parameters? Well, you just ask it. You ask it, what are the top used keywords in Santa Clarita real estate, for example, and it pulls and extracts that data and gives me those. So pretty soon, and probably more sooner than you think, they'll have a system in place that basically every morning at 7:30, the agent's going to take it upon themselves to do all the research that I do in my business, and then it's going to be able to take it, create this video, and I'm not even there, and it's going to put it all together and post it everywhere. So here I am doing what? Expanding in some other thing that I want to do, learning about something that I don't know yet. This is all great. But when you get into the working world and you get into all these jobs that people have, what are they going to do? Well, what am I going to do? Because real estate is probably going to be automated to such a point where you'll probably have some kind of robot selling real estate. And robot, I know that term sounds very clunky, but if it's an AI-powered robot that has great empathy and expanded consciousness, it's going to be hard to compete with that as a human being. Of course, you got flesh and blood, you got the warmth, but I don't think that would be very far either in the future to build a biological organism to mirror that of a human being. Okay, so these are all future shows we're talking about. One more thing I'll tell you. I think it's going to come down to soul. I believe that in the very end, I tried to pencil this out and work it out 5-10 years from now. I believe after the big world, when artificial general intelligence hits, and hopefully the United States or some affiliate of ours will come up with it first, because the one that gets that first is probably going to win a lot, and it's going to be very detrimental, I think, for a little while, unless we put those controls on it. But if you put controls on it, then the people here are going to have controls, because we're a law-abiding republic. And you're going to have people in other countries probably not obeying any law, trying to get there first. And with those restrictions, you might stop it, but without the restrictions, you might create a big problem. I don't know the answer. The answer, I think, will come in the comments of this particular show. It will come by people a lot smarter than me, deep-thinking people. But the soul thing comes to mind. Believe in God, don't believe in God. I believe that you're going to have the people that believe in the immortal soul, God-given, versus everyone else. And I think that's going to create a lot of problems in the future as well. Not that it's a problem to believe you have a soul. I believe I have one, but now it's an us and them type thing. You have the people that don't believe they have a soul, maybe atheists, we could throw that out there. And I would guess maybe a lot of them, I know quite a few, maybe they also believe that they have a soul of some type, but maybe not. It's not ascribed to a specific God, Christian God, Muslim God, whatever it may be. So maybe they're a little different in the thought process, but I think, robots, AI doesn't have a soul. Human beings do, so maybe that's going to be the dividing point. And then in the future, you'll also have people that are not going to be interested, almost becoming Amish in regard to technology. No offense against the Amish, but basically shutting everything down and then wanting to have it kind of the old way. That's going to be another section of the world. But I believe there are some exciting times ahead of us. I know that I listen to a lot of these technological speakers online. You got Mo, you can look him up. He's fantastic. I would say his last name, but I'm probably going to mess it up, Guadot. But very wonderful person. There's a lot of podcasts. But I look at the views. I would think these would get so many views. I mean, millions and millions. Most get a few thousand, but they're just laden with information. The other thing that people are running into when they're watching these things is they're seeing all of the artificial intelligence put together these types of shows. They have two people talking, maybe not visibly. Sometimes, yes, they are visible. And they're talking back and forth, and AI is generating both parties and the content. Be wary with what you watch. One of the things that one of the three tenets I hold on to, the final one, is truth, and then another one's humanness. And the truth is important because what you're watching could really influence you. And we see it right now. They have the algorithms, the way that TikTok and Instagram and these other systems run. There's a certain way that it gets used to the way you look, the videos you like. Even if you don't interact, the longer you're on these pages watching these videos, it quickly adjusts and adapts to you. And it doesn't give you everything you want right away. It gives you maybe 2 or 3 bad things and a good thing. 2 or 3 bad things and a good thing. Because if you ever saw that Twilight Zone episode of the guy that thought he died and went to heaven because he was winning all the time, some gangster mob boss, I don't know if you saw it, but he's winning everything. He's winning roulette, he's winning poker, he's winning the girls, he's just winning everything. And after a while, he's like, God, I would have rather have gone to hell because this really sucks. It was kind of cool at the beginning to win everything, but now that I'm winning everything, I don't like it. And they came and said, you are in hell. So let's be careful what we wish for. I know people that are watching, we don't have a lot of control over everything that they're doing everywhere else. And I know that's a really crappy way to look at things. There's a lot of cowboys in the mix that are out there building something that we need to be a little bit wary of. And it's going to start with our own processing ability of the things we watch. I have people close to me bringing me videos. Oh my God, did you see what Trump did? Or did you see what Putin did? Did you see what Xi did? Or did you see what whomever did? And they're fake videos. They're completely fake videos being manufactured to elicit some kind of a response. Be careful who you watch. See if you can know them. See if there's some way to determine if I'm real or the people that are producing this content are real, and then take it from there. If you think they're a good source, you think they have good things to say, great. If you don't agree with them, great, and comment. But the bottom line is be careful what you're watching and make sure that it's coming from a valid source. We'll be back in the future for different AI-related videos. This is AI with Honor. You can find me at that place, those places on YouTube as well, where I'm going to post this video, and I'm sure I'll split it into shorts as well. We'll see how that looks. I'm Connor with Honor. Be well. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. It means a lot.